everyone, welcome back to my, I think, 5th podcast episode at this point, but I actually recorded this one other time before, but I didn't really like that episode, so I just ended up scrapping it and I'm just filming it again. Plus I feel like I have more updates anyway, so I can make it into a bit of a longer video. The other one was quite long though too. It was like almost 40 minutes. And just by the way, you guys are leaning against a dragon fruit. Like I have a dragon fruit behind me because it's like rubbery, you know, this table that you're sitting on is a little bit slippery. So that's what's holding my phone in place right now. But anyways, I asked some people on my Instagram and my YouTube for some either questions or unpopular opinions. So the one on my Instagram is the unpopular opinions, and then I only got one question on like a YouTube community post, so I'm gonna go through those. And I also want to talk about some other unpopular opinions I heard of on YouTube, because honestly I like listening to the unpopular opinion videos on YouTube. So if any YouTuber who's like knitting related or crochet related has posted an unpopular opinion video, I probably watched it because I just like the drama behind it. I don't know, I think it's like really funny because it's not that serious, but I just like seeing things that like people have different opinions about. But yeah, so let's get started with my Instagram comments. So somebody said knitting is way easier than crochet. I'm gonna agree, but only because I'm a knitter and I've only done like maybe 1 or 2 crochet patterns. I just think the counting in crochet is kind of hard, but also I'm not like good enough at it to give an accurate assessment of this. So if somebody's like really good at both, then maybe you could share some wisdom. Also, I feel like, I don't know if other people in crochet can do this, but I can not look at my knitting while I'm knitting it, you know what I mean? But with crochet, the whole time I had to like make sure I was going in the right loops and stitches. But I don't know if you get better, you don't have to do that. Just from like my experience, I had to do that, so it kind of makes it not as much of a hands-free experience as knitting. But there also are certain things in knitting that you can't really look away from, like if you're doing color work or you're on a cable round, you know, you have to look at that. But anyways, another thing was purling is actually not that bad. I don't know why I get so much hate. I think this comes from the people who do, I think it's called like the English style of knitting, where they kind of wrap the yarn around or flicking. This is my knitting project, by the way, I'll show it in a second. But I knit continental, I think that's what it's called. I honestly am not really that professional at all of the different terms that people have for knitting, but yeah, I knit continental, I guess, where you kind of wrap the yarn around your finger and you just like kind of knit with it. And I honestly don't really see a difference between knitting and purling for me. It's just like, oh, the yarn is held in the front. It doesn't make any difference in my life. Like I don't care if it's in the front or in the back, because it just feels the same to me. But if it like affects the flow of your knitting, then I understand that. I just like don't know, because I don't have experience knitting like that. So if somebody knits like that, if you could explain like the mechanics or like what exactly is different about purling versus knitting in that specific style, that'd be really interesting for me to hear about. Next thing is open holes in crochet sweaters make it cold and unwearable. Yeah, my mom would definitely agree with that. I agree also, but it's only if it's like meant to be a sweater versus if it's like meant to be a top, because I feel like you can have a long sleeve top but it's still like airy and breathable. I mean, I wear this in the summer and it's not like airy and breathable, but I still like do wear long sleeve stuff in all different types of weather conditions. So I think you can still like have something functional long sleeve and still be a summer garment. So if it wants to have holes in it, that's fine. But like for practicality's sake, I understand where this person is coming from, because you don't want to have to like put 5,000 layers under it just to like block the holes out. Or I guess you could, so I made my diagonally opening sweater with the Chinese frog clasps, and that one I had like little gapes in between it, but actually it didn't really let that much air in at all. And it's actually quite warm because everywhere else it's covered and cabled in like thick alpaca. So in that case, I don't really think it matters. But actually, fun fact, so I'm gonna insert a picture over here, but my mom made, and she actually still makes, so she takes all of her jeans and stuff that have holes and rips in them, and she'll put like a piece of fabric underneath and sew it together, and then she'll crochet with scrap yarn little patches and put them on the jeans because she just like thinks it's kind of a cute idea, and she also doesn't like the feel of the air coming through the ripped jeans, which I also agree with. I don't wear jeans with rips. I actually don't wear pants, by the way. Like I only wear pants when certain activities require pants because I feel like a lot of pants don't fit me that well. I wear skirts and dresses every other time, like hands down. So yeah, but so I have two pairs, actually three pairs of jeans. Two of them are exactly the same, and one of them is the pair that she sewed the patches on for me, and that's the picture that I just inserted. So little fun fact about my wardrobe and my mom's knitting, or my mom's crochet. But next unpopular opinion, it may make a lot of people upset, but I'm not really sure how many people on this specific channel, because I feel like a lot of people on this channel like probably knit stuff that's kind of similar to me, but somebody said that superwash merino wool is a disgrace to humanity. Yeah, so I think that it just depends on what you're trying to make. Like I would personally never work with superwash merino wool again, or like variegated wool again, just because it's not my style at all. And when I was like first starting out knitting, I loved it because it was so cool to me, like all the different colors. And I also like wasn't at the skill level to make something interesting on my own, so I thought like having cool yarn was a way to like spice it up. And also it's like not something you can find in stores, which is really interesting. So from that perspective, I understand it. But then when I started getting more into like Fair Isle and cable and all that kind of stuff, the superwash merino wool, when I would knit cables with it and I would like bend my arm, there would just be like a bulge, and then I would flatten it and the bulge would still be there. Like it would literally just be like this, even if it was like, so I think that's from the superwash, because when I've done it with normal wool, that hasn't happened before and nobody could figure out why, and then I figured out it's probably because it's superwash. And also like I just think that Fair Isle looks better in I don't know, I just think most of my projects look better in like a rustic wool that's not superwash. I think it wears better over time. That being said, like half of my pieces in my closet are superwash because it was nice. I could wear it as a t-shirt. I wouldn't have to wear something underneath it, but at this point I feel like my itch tolerance is pretty good now, and also I like the feeling of having wool that wears over time. I love that feeling. So yeah, also it's like cheaper too. For the most part, I feel like non-superwash wool, at least from where I bought it, has been cheaper for me than superwash wool, just because it's treated and all that. But yeah, I do like solid colors and rustic wool now. Also with Fair Isle, it's just easier to use a solid color versus like a variegated color, because you can't really control what's going to happen in the rest of the pattern, and it kind of it can mess it up sometimes. Like I've had that happen, and then I've had to like unravel the whole sweater. Oh, my unpopular opinion is I don't use the word frog. I only use the word unravel because I know that there's two different stories for like how the frog came. At least this is what I've heard, that there's two different stories of why people say frog, because it's like when you're like unraveling, it's like you rip it, and that's like the sound that a frog makes. And then the other thing I heard was like back in the days where we had the flip phones, I was around, barely, but I was around, so you would like type the letters into the corresponding number, so like one would be ABC, so I guess it was just faster to type frog versus unraveling in like the internet forums. So that's kind of where it came from, but I just like the word unraveling. I'm just like not really into frogs, so I don't know. I just feel like I don't associate in my head a frog with knitting, but it's not like a serious issue or anything. I just think it's kind of funny, but I just use the word unraveling. Next unpopular opinion, and the last unpopular opinion from my followers, is German short rows are easy. So I think that they're actually kind of hard, but that's just the way that I learned them, and I learned them like verbally from my mom being like, okay, like knit up to here and then turn, and then knit up to here and then turn, and I was like, well, I don't really know where to turn. But I think if you have like written instructions, it's actually not that hard. Just almost every time that I do it, I have to watch a video of how to like do the twist to make it not an open gaping hole, every time I do it. So like it's kind of like an Italian bind-off situation where I have to like look intentionally to make sure that I'm doing it correctly before I actually do it. But I actually, this project, so I was supposed to show you this project. Okay, this project uses German short rows in the back, but this is my new Qipao inspired top. It's gonna have cap sleeves though. It's not gonna be like a tank top. It looks ugly right now because it's unblocked and just curling, you see, but it has a lace at the bottom. It's gonna have like a crochet edge. It has the mandarin collar and it has buttons going diagonally across like that. I'll insert a picture here because right now it looks not good at all, so sorry about that. But I feel like the thing with the pure silk yarn is that it normally doesn't look very promising until like you block it, which is like, it's kind of like a reward, you know, when you block it and you're like, oh, like I made this whole thing. But while you're making it and while it's just like sitting like this, unless it's like on, then sometimes it looks okay, but the blocking really is magical. All right, so I have one person who commented on my last post on YouTube from Midge's Knitting Space who said, how do you do so much knitting and stay so productive in your creative life? How do you balance that with other interests and work? So I feel like I haven't been doing a ton of knitting recently just because I've had a lot of stuff to do, like a lot of work, and also pattern writing kind of slows that process down as well. But I've knit a decent amount. Like I've honestly knit a decent amount just because I gave myself some time to just like focus on knitting. By the way, I went to a knitting night and somebody said that they recognized me from my reel, and I was like, am I famous now? I'm not, but it was really funny. And then I told one of my friends about it and he's like, you need to have security guards now. And I was like, this is really funny. But that was really sweet. I didn't think I was gonna get recognized at like a little knitting night. But shout out to her. That was really funny. It was for the gray sweater that I just knitted. I guess she had seen it and she's like, oh, I know you. But how do I balance that with other interests and work? So I honestly knit anytime that I'm just like sitting and doing nothing. Like if I'm sitting in a car, plane, train, restaurant, anything, I'm just like knitting because I don't really have anything else to do. Knitting is such a portable hobby, and it's also quite a clean hobby compared to a lot of other creating hobbies. Like I know sewing can get a little bit messy, like painting, drawing, whatever. But this just feels like a very clean and concise hobby, which kind of gets to my next unpopular opinion, but I'll share that in a second. I'll finish answering this question. And I don't know, like I know knitting for a lot of people is a job, but for me, it's like I'm trying to kind of make it into a little bit of a job, but I have a lot of other work that I should be doing, and like to procrastinate the work that I should be doing, I do like the less important task, which is like writing a knitting pattern or something. And I've never felt so motivated to like write knitting patterns before, even though I'm such a small creator. But it feels really rewarding seeing my posts on Ravelry that like, oh, I made a pattern, like I wrote the pattern, because pattern writing takes a lot of work. Like each of my garment patterns are, I think, like about 20 pages long or more, and I have like a group of test knitters. So yeah, I do procrastinate my less important work with like writing a knitting pattern, or like, I don't know, I feel like I can watch an informative video in like a studying sense and also knit at the same time. So maybe that's also how I knit a lot. But yeah, also I guess I'm a fast knitter. Like people have seen me knit and say like, you're a fast knitter, but also there's that. Now getting on to my unpopular opinions, that's kind of related to like how I think knitting is at least a clean hobby for me. But so I think like two of the biggest things that the knitting community is kind of divided on is whether or not you have like one or more projects going at the same time, or if you're a monogamous knitter or not. Like if you have one project only, or if you're working on more than one project. And I've mentioned this before, so you may know this about me from my channel, but yeah, I only knit one project at a time, and I don't have a yarn stash really. Like I don't enjoy buying yarn at all. But we'll get into the monogamous knitter thing first. I'll talk about why I don't like buying yarn. I feel like buying yarn for me is like a responsibility because I'm bringing that stuff into my stash and into my house, and I have to like, now I'm responsible to make them. And I know like a lot of people don't think that way, but for me it's just like something that becomes an extra chore that like, okay, like I have this, I don't want it to just sit there, I have to make it now. So then I become like almost married to the idea that I have to knit this sweater. And for me, I know there's also like kind of two different types of knitters. One who can like buy yarn and then figure out a project later, which is how my mom is. But for me, I have to have a very specific idea in mind before I go shopping for yarn. And I honestly like don't like buying yarn until I'm over halfway done with a project that I already have on my needles. So, and the last time I bought yarn in bulk, it was like for a very pragmatic reason because I was going to Scandinavia and that's the yarn that I buy anyways. It's Scandinavian yarn. So it would have been tariff-free, like tax refund, already cheaper there. So it made sense to buy in bulk. But even for that, I had very specifically planned like 3 weeks out what I was going to buy and like the projects I was going to make with it. And I had like a list because I didn't want to buy it and then I didn't want to make the project anymore, and it was just like sitting there and I didn't really know what else to do with it. The one thing I can see myself doing is buying like a sweater quantity's worth of yarn, and just because like I like the color or I like the material or I like have a vague idea of what I'm gonna buy with it. But even then, like what if it's something that requires more and then I don't have access to that dye lot? Also, I don't have a yarn store near me, so everything I order has to be either online or while I'm traveling. So there's just really no way to guarantee I'll ever get that same dye lot again, especially if it's like while I'm traveling. So in that case, there has to be like a pattern in mind that I'm going to buy and then make it. And it may change a bit just because I'm starting to design more patterns. So it may be a little bit different. Like I'm not sure. And especially since like I do have to buy yarn in bulk now if I ever travel, just because it's cheaper for me in my head. Like I want to buy it in bulk now because the ones that I bought in Scandinavia, I think I bought enough for like maybe 5 or 6 projects. They're all done. Like they're all gone. This is the last of it, and this is only because I bought 7 balls of this because I thought I would need 7 balls for the dress, but I ended up needing only 3.5, so I'm using the rest of it for the top. But after this, I have no more yarn. I have like scrap balls of yarn just like laying around in the house from like a ball here and there from different projects that are different weights and different like fiber content, but I can't really mix those and make something. And I actually spent a good deal of time last year just dedicating myself to scrap yarn projects. So there was like a good probably like 4 or 5 months where I didn't buy any yarn at all, and it was actually really nice. And I made like a ton of hats, which my hat patterns came from those scrap yarn projects actually. I made like teddy bears, Miffies, just like little things here and there, like the Ripka pouches, bags, like an onigiri bag. But yeah, I made a lot of scrap yarn projects, which was actually really nice and stash busting. But I also have like like I was saying, so superwash merino wool that's variegated, that it's in my stash, but I don't really consider it as part of my stash because I'm never going to use it, and it's actually they're for sale, so they're leaving the stash and it's just not something I'm using, so I don't consider it as part of my personal stash anymore. But yeah, I'm kind of picky with how I buy yarn. Like I'll walk into a yarn store, I just like won't buy something until I have a very specific project in mind. And sometimes if I see that they have the yarn, I'll like look on Ravelry for a project I could make with it, or just like think of something. But yeah, I don't really impulse buy yarn because for me it's more of like something that weighs heavily on me versus just something that brings me joy. But I know a lot of people buy yarn and then they come up with amazing creative things after they have like the yarn in their house already. So it just depends on like how you view it. I just view it as more of like something I have to do and just like another piece of responsibility. Also, like, I know this is a very long-winded explanation. I also think that for me in my life, and I'm sure in like most people's lives, there's a lot of things that don't have a definite ending point. Just so many tasks I have to do that are like constantly in motion, or like you have to study, and There's always more you could be studying or more work you could be doing. Chores, they're like repetitive, so you have to keep doing them and doing them and doing them. So for me, knitting one project at a time, so I guess this goes to my other topic of like knitting one project at a time, feels like it's just like a clean headspace for me. It's like the one thing that I can focus solely on that, and it also has a finite ending. Like it actually has an end in sight, so like I know that when I'm done, you know, and then I'll start a new project. But having multiple projects gets kind of messy because it also like I don't want to be a quitter on the project that I'm working on, because when I quit and then come back, I forget a lot of stuff and I forget where I was. The only times I give like myself a pass for doing that is if it's like really painful to unravel, if it's like a self-drafted project and it came out wrong and I have to unravel it. I'll like cast that off to the side because I just can't look at it for a couple months. I need like a couple months for the pain and like the knowledge of how much hours I spent to dissipate before I can unravel the project and then continue on making it again. And like honestly, I would rather unravel than make something that I don't like. So, but it's just hard to know that you spent so much time doing something. And sometimes I have to give my mom the thing to unravel. She's like, let me do it for you. And I was like, okay. But yeah, so that's kind of the reason why. But also because like, what if you're working on a sleeve and then you don't want to knit the second sleeve, but then you forget like what you did? Because I usually don't follow patterns verbatim. Like I've almost never followed a pattern verbatim. So there's something I do, and then like continuously, like working on that flow continuously gives me like knowledge of what I'm gonna do next, and I remember what I did next. So also I just don't like having a bunch of project bags laying around. I don't really have space to have multiple bags of projects everywhere. So yeah, I am a monogamous knitter. It's funny because somebody told me what that was and I had no idea. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, I have twice this year worked on 2 projects at the same time, because the first time I ran out of yarn because my mom took the rest of the yarn with her home. I was on a trip. And the second time I was also on a trip and I didn't have like a sewing machine until I went up to Seattle, and my friend would let me use her sewing machine, so shout out to her. That was really nice. So I was able to like continue on that project, but it needed to be steak, so I started another project. But it was not enjoyable having 2 projects for me at the same time, because I felt like I needed to divide my time, and like how was I gonna divide my time between 2 things? And that's how I feel about like other stuff that's not knitting related that I already do. So it's like, in my creative space, we're gonna be focusing on one thing at a time. But yeah, so that's it for my unpopular opinions. I feel like these are not really unpopular, they're just like divided opinions. But I did see a girl on YouTube, I don't remember her channel name, or I would have totally said it, but some of the things that she said stuck out to me because they're very oddly specific, and I like that. Like because I've heard a lot of these things a lot of times, so there's not really much more you can say. But for the stuff that she said, her unpopular opinions, I appreciated them because they were very specific. So she said like she doesn't like the word finished object, kind of like my frog thing. She says that she likes finished project, not object, because it's like, I don't know what it was, like objectifying the object. I don't know because it's a project. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like I say both, but I mostly say project. But also on this channel, I feel like I've said a couple times work in project instead of work in progress, but it is a work in project, like I'm working on the project. But yeah, and then she also said that she won't knit anything with a fish on it, like a fish design. I've knit the Ripka pouch, but I agree with this one because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm actually afraid of fish. Like it's not like something that I'll look at them and I'll be like petrified in fear. I just like really don't like the way that they look. They look creepy to me. I also don't eat fish because of that. Like I don't want to have any, I will not go scuba diving. Let's just put it this way. I will not go scuba diving because if I see a fish near me, I'll be like, no thank you. But yeah, so I don't really like having fish motifs on stuff. I find them to be weird looking. But I would gladly knit a bunny or like any other animal, just like specifically with fish. I draw the line. Also with insects, I don't like insects either. I know a lot of people have done knits with insects on them, but personally, I don't like insects either, so I don't really see the point of me making that and then just like being afraid of my knitting. So yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that she said. I think she said like something about petite knit, which a lot of people have made videos on that, of whether or not like she's overrated or not, and like if she makes like really basic pieces. And I think that, yeah, like some of her pieces are very basic and I don't need a pattern to do it at my level of knitting, but for beginners, I think that's perfectly fine. And she does have like some more interesting complicated pieces if you're like into that. So like the Dagmar that I made, the Esther was actually quite hard, so I'm not gonna say that that was an easy project because it was hard purling on like the wrong side, all that kind of stuff. It was a little bit challenging, but the Dagmar is actually quite nice. The Saga sweater is new. I actually kind of want to make that. I just don't know how I feel about the turtleneck because turtlenecks sometimes don't really work well with me. So but yeah, like I don't think, if you don't like her pattern, just find a different pattern. There's so many different knitwear designers, even like smaller designers that make really complicated cool patterns. And also she said that not every pattern has to be beginner friendly, or like not every pattern needs to be difficult, or just something like that. But like depending on whatever skill level you are, you can always find a pattern that's catered towards you. Like I don't think that every pattern needs to be beginner friendly, and I don't think every pattern needs to be difficult because everybody's at a different spot in knitting. But for me, I do prefer more complicated patterns because I feel like if I'm buying the yarn, I want to make something really intricate, really cool design that you can't find anywhere else, and that requires a lot of thinking, because at the end of the day, the reward is amazing. Like, yeah, I put in a little bit more effort, but the result that I get is so cool. So for me, like every project that I have will have like an element of cables or like lace or color work. Very seldom do I do plain stockinette. I mean, like, okay, I did it here, but there's something else going on. There's like a mandarin collar, there's a diagonally opening, there's lace, you know. So but that's like the only case that I have where recently I've been doing something with plain stockinette that I can think of. But yeah, so I think that it just comes down to finding a pattern design that works well for you. But everybody's at a different stage in knitting, so I don't think that that matters that much. And I also kind of want to talk a little bit about my Chinese knitting projects. I want to make like a full video dedicated to the Chinese knits that I'm working on, but I'm currently having my qipao dress being tested. I did get a couple of messages, by the way, saying that some people wanted to knit the untested version, just like because like one of them wanted to knit the dress for her graduation, which is, I'm really happy that somebody wants to knit my dress for their graduation. That is really sweet. So I listed it up on Ravelry, the most recent version. The test knit won't be done until like mid-June, I think. But if you want to get the untested version, that's fine. Like I told the people who already purchased it that I'll be sending you guys email updates every time that my test knitters and I make a correction or something. So, because Ravelry sends me everybody's email, so I can just like send email updates. Or just like, I think if I update the pattern, everybody automatically gets an email update on Ravelry, like an email from Ravelry. So if you want to do that, that's cool. It comes with a dress and a top pattern. Just I don't have pictures of the top because I only made the dress. So maybe like my test knitters, when they're done, you'll be able to see the top versions of that like on Instagram. And for my sweater, I'm still working on that pattern. I'm waiting for like some of my other tasks to be done that are not knitting related. And then I have this other top that I'm making, which is diagonally open, like another qipao style. There's a lot of qipao styles that I want to make going forward. I don't know what type of fiber it's going to be exactly, but I also want to do some sort of like cool Chinese color work design. Like I think that would be really cool. And honestly, like this is something I wanted to do for a long time, so I'm super happy that I finally decided to do it. I also get a ton of comments asking where I got this shirt from, so now you can kind of make your own version of it. But yeah, like Chinese style is honestly something that I incorporate into my wardrobe regularly. Like I'm sure you guys have seen in some of my videos the qipao tops that I wear. I also wear like the mamian chun, like the skirts that are pleated. Those are really cool. They're from like the Song and the Liao dynasties, I believe. But people wear them as like fashion now in China, just on the streets. So I feel like a lot of like young Chinese people have reclaimed traditional outfits and just wear them now, and it's really it's gorgeous. So there's so many different styles. I mean, every dynasty has very different, like there's hanfu, which is like flowy and it kind of like sits up here, and then there's like flowy sleeves, and then there's like actually the chipao originally was more of a loose fitting garment, and then more in like the 50s and 60s it became more of like the form fitted, and then obviously what you see today. So there's a plethora of styles that I can think of to replicate. But yeah, like in my daily life I already wear this stuff. Like I wear this top every single time I'm traveling. This is just like my travel top. It comes with me everywhere. Also every time I go to the airport I wear this shirt. So and like my mamyeonchuns, like the skirts, even though they're quite dramatic, I wear them to like the grocery store and stuff when I'm at home. I don't travel with them just because they're too thick and they're too heavy. But like the qipao tops, my mom got those from Chinatown back in the 90s, and I just wear them if I like I said, if there's a situation where I have to wear pants like jeans or something, I'll just wear that to just kind of give the outfit a little bit more of something special about it. So yeah, I wear the qipao tops as well. But yeah, there's so many things that I want to create, and obviously like Chinese fabric is very intricate. There's like brocade going on. It's not stuff that is very easy to translate into knitting, especially just like plain knitting. But I think like the modern Chinese pieces are a little bit more simple. So this is a way that you can add a bit of Chinese style into something that's more casual and simple. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not really a way for me to replicate the brocade exactly. But like I said, I do want to create some more colorwork pieces. So just stay tuned for that, and I'll post like updates on all of that stuff. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching my new podcast episode, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.